And they must be sure. I think he just wanted to say it out loud. I don't think he had any expectation that I would repeat that to anyone.
How common is something like that with you? I would just wonder. People, they must be approaching you to the point that I just made a moment ago, where everyone thinks you can just do anything you want with anything. How common would an interaction like that be in your life?
Interactions like that are very common because I was that I would do anything with that. I think he was just sort of complaining out loud. I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that
as a commissioner, you're going to have all types of people approaching you.
Thought that I would then do anything with that information.
I agree. And what happens, Greeny, is being as transparent and as present as he's been as a commissioner, you're going to have all types of people approaching you. Coaches, managers, agents, players. And there's a common denominator to each person that approaches him and asks for something. It's in their best interest. So I'm pretty sure it's a unique juggling act that you have to gauge when those interactions take place.
It is, and Jalen, I know you know this too. I mean, we use the expression the NBA family. I mean, I think one of the advantages, I would argue, over the other leagues, it's a very small league. I mean, I've been in the league for 27 years.
Only 4,000 players have ever performed
played
in the NBA game.
And especially, like, for example, when we're on the road for the finals or other events or in City for All-Star, there's usually a few restaurants that everyone's in. And I think if I got to the point where I didn't want to, I avoided those restaurants because somebody might say something to me or somebody walked up to me and said, don't say anything to me, I don't think I could do my job as effectively.
I have 1 minute left, and so just this one quickly. There was a lot of Zion Williamson, huge star, going to New Orleans. John Morant expected, and another guy who looks like he has star potential written all over him, going to Memphis. The two biggest college stars to the two smallest markets in the NBA. How does that impact the league?
I think it's fantastic for the league. I think the goal is to have a 30-team league, a league where competition is determined based on management, not based on market size, not based by the individual wealth of ownership. And I think here we're seeing it increasingly. Look at the success Portland had in the conference finals. Look at Milwaukee. Look at Toronto, which is actually a very fourth largest market in North America, but one historically that people said players wouldn't want to play in and that couldn't compete. And I think what we're seeing in terms of the way the lottery's working, the way the draft's working, is that players first and foremost want to win. In this market that had 1 million more people, you could really be a star. I think what you want a system where players want to be in a market where they believe in management, they believe in their coach, they believe in their ownership, and they think if I'm here, I have the greatest opportunity to win. That's what it should be about, and all the other stuff follows from that.
And as somebody that grew up in the Midwest, I always frown at the notion that the league pushes the best players to the largest market. I was happy the way the lottery system played out, because not only did it show that tanking doesn't pay off, in particular for the Bulls, the Suns, and the Knicks, because neither of them got the top 2 picks, but the 2 smallest markets probably got the 2 most explosive players coming into this year's draft. Do you hear that talk about how the league favors where a top player might end up going?
I do watch ESPN. So I have heard it. It's not true.
I know I have to let you go. I can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming down here again. Good luck tomorrow. You'll be in Toronto.
Yes.
You'll be in Toronto for Game 1 of the finals. Thank you, Commissioner Adam Silver. Thank you for coming by. And thank you for everyone for bringing them down here. And speaking of Game 1, we'll remind you that the NBA Finals begin tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time on ABC. Coverage also on ESPN Deportes. The countdown coverage begins at 8:30 Eastern. Again, Jalen and company will be ready to go there. You can see it all streaming live on the ESPN app, no matter where you are. That's tomorrow night for Game 1 coverage of the NBA Finals, all of which will be on ABC. And we'll see how many games that winds up going as I bring DJ back into the conversation here. And we so appreciate the commissioner coming down here and the folks who brought him down, and a lot there to react to. And let's start with the Laker piece of it, and in particular that story about Rich Paul. And I'll say this. When I read the story about the Lakers, I would say that my reaction was both a combination of total shock and no surprise at all, which is to say that I think you are correct when you say when there is dysfunction, Dysfunction comes from a lot of different competing agendas and no one having the ability to tamp all of that down and say we're all going in one direction now. And so if you were to sum up the problems with the Lakers, it could be perfectly summed up in the notion that Rich Paul might walk up to the commissioner of the NBA, who has nothing to do with anything at all, and saying, you know, this guy's the wrong coach for the team. Because there are so many competing agendas that there is no conceivable chance for all of that to work until there is one voice who is leading everyone in one direction.
And also, I have to be the person to say this. Rich Paul has been put in the most unique position in the history of the NBA. Not only based on his skin color and what he does, but the power that he yields because he represents the best player, LeBron James, who just so happens to be a mogul while he's currently performing. I believe whether it was Adam Silver or Adam that plays in the NFL, Rich Paul would have went up to them and said the exact same thing about Luke Walton. You know why? Because that's what he believes.
Yes,
right.
yes.
And so that's what makes this unique.
And I'm going to say this. I've been holding this back for some days now, in that Rich Paul is doing nothing any different than any of these other major agents that have top players in the NBA. Okay, I think that he gets a bad rap just because of the way that Clutch Sports, LeBron James, and that whole umbrella is positioned. And I think it's
What
unfair.
do you mean by is positioned?
I'm just saying you have Uninterrupted, part of Clutch Sports. You have other businesses, Maverick Carter, he does his thing. You have Randy Mims, and all these guys have been put in position to do great things, and they're doing great things. And I think that Rich Paul is getting a bad rap just because of that.
How about, but also you got to say the truth. He upset the apple cart. He upset the apple cart.
Yes.
There was a good old boy network in the agency field before they kicked down the door and made their impression. If you look at the vast majority of players in the league, I'll say the top 7 or 8 on each team, they're really only represented by like 5 people. Okay, so there was a monopoly happening over this league for decades. And then now all of a sudden, here comes Rich Paul with LeBron James, and they're doing a lot of different projects. LeBron's going from Cleveland to Miami. He's going from Miami to Cleveland. He's going from Cleveland to LA. He's shaking up the game. So now a guy like Kevin Durant, like, I can do that. And he follows LeBron's lead. And so LeBron has been orchestrating and like pulling strings in the game. That's why he's falling in love with the movie Godfather.
Final comment. Nobody was saying anything about Rich Paul when he was a runner for CAA, and he was doing the same thing. Getting after players, you know, talking to different superstars on different teams, but he was under CAA. But no one had a problem with that until he created his own company,
Ownership.
Clutch Sports.
I think I want to make sure I understand what you're getting at here. I think what you're suggesting, if I'm understanding you correctly, and please tell me if I'm not, is that what you're saying is because LeBron James, in his connection to Rich Paul, appears to have influence into things that go beyond anything you've ever seen a player have influence in before. People are made uncomfortable by that. People feel as though their turf or their territory is being sort of usurped by that, and they are fighting back and for lack of a better word, leaking bad stuff about those guys.
Well, it's unique power. Just think about it like this. I was a time I was represented by David Falk. He had Michael Jordan.
Right.
You don't think every player that he went to go recruit, he let them know that? You don't think every team in the league knew that he had that relationship?
But
and helped them?
what if
I'm gonna tell you what make it different.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you what make it different. What make it different is they weren't childhood buddies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They were business professionals that met on that level, and then you felt like, yeah, there's some autonomy there, maybe some wiggle room there. When you see Rich and you see LeBron, you know you're not infiltrating that.
Yeah.
And that's what's frustrating to a lot of people.
All right, I have to leave it here for a moment. We'll take a short time out again. You were watching Get Up on ESPN. We just had Adam Silver here. There's a lot going on, obviously, and the NBA Finals start
Rich
tomorrow.
get money.
And there's this team, the Los Angeles Lakers, who continue to be in the news. We discuss that and more as we roll forward. Stay